Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan. Nobody with me here today. Logan is celebrating the holidays with some family that are in town. I am going to be doing this episode solo. It's been almost 2 weeks since we recorded, I believe. The week right before we recorded our last episode, or right after we recorded, we did have a vote go through for Major League Soccer's change of schedule to match the European calendar. So we will discuss my thoughts on that. We'll get Logan's thoughts on that next time. We also have some changes to the Apple TV deal, and we might even check in on some USL championship results and some fun stats with that, as well as looking at what just transpired in Major League Soccer in the playoffs. So I guess let's go ahead and get started with this change of schedule. So, I was constantly refreshing on the Thursday that they were voting for this. This was on November 13th, and it came out around 4 o'clock, I believe, that the vote was publicized, and The Athletic wrote an article about it. So MLS owners officially voted to flip the calendar to begin in mid-July and run through May. So as The Athletic says here, the vote moves the league forward on a major change it has been studying and debating for more than a year. And this is going to take effect in 2027. So we have some changes with that as well. So next year, 2026, will be the last year of our normal schedule of late February to December for MLS Cup. What we have instead is in 2027, there will be what they call a sprint season that will go from mid-February to May, and it'd be around 14 games, and then have an MLS Cup playoffs after that season. Then we would start the new season in July of 2027 through 2028 May, and that is how we will be having the season going forward. So the league owners also voted to update the regular season format. So what they will have instead is a single table competition. So no longer will we have to worry about this team is top of the East, this team is top of the West. But in that single table, there will also be 5 6-team divisions beginning in 2027. They don't have a full set of the details as of yet. That'll probably come as we get closer to 2027. I'm not sure if the sprint season is going to have the single table and the divisions as well, because it just says 2027. So it could be in that sprint season. It could be in the 2027-2028 season. I don't think it's official yet. So, of course, there were a lot of replies and responses to this where people say this is not good for the cold regions. I don't think it's actually going to be that big of a deal. I say that as somebody that's in a cold area. I mean, the Philadelphia area can get quite cold, especially with that stadium being on the water. But I don't think it's going to be. I've had some pushback on this. I've on either Twitter or on Reddit, whatever. We already play from the end of February, as it is right now, to the end of October, with chances of any team being able to host MLS Cup in December, the first week of December. From what they're saying here, the season would start in July. It would take a break after that first week of December, and then would pick back up in February. And then, go onward till like April, May, and then have the playoffs. So in my opinion, I understand people will say, well, there's more games now in November and December that will create weather issues, et cetera, et cetera. I have two thoughts to this. If there are really severe weather issues, the game will be pushed. It'll be made up. We get stuff canceled in the summer for thunder and lightning storms, or severe heat. Can be an issue in the summer as well. With the way our country is laid out, there's really no great window of time to do it. Um, and I know people are like, I don't want to sit in the cold. Look, nobody really wants to sit in the cold, but NFL fans do it every year. And I know we're not at the NFL level. I know that's not ever going to probably happen. But if you can show up to a college football game or an NFL game and spend longer outside than you know, it's 2 hours, right? It's 2 hours for soccer. You get 90-minute game time, 15-minute halftime, and maybe 15 minutes before the game you're there. Like it is really like 2 hours that you're standing out there compared to an NFL game that can take 3 or 4 hours, plus how many people will go out and do tailgating and all that kind of stuff too. I guess I don't see why people can go to an NFL game in the cold and it be okay, but people won't show up for an MLS game. I think part of it is that we don't have as many diehard fans of this league, so that's probably part of it, right? But it happens. It happened. I don't think you're going to have as many problems as you're expecting to have with this. They said that so many of the teams, even in the North, say that the league has thought through all of this. That the league knows what they're doing. So I just find it funny when people in the comments of these articles on discussion threads are saying that the league just jumped into this without thinking. Apparently, the league thought really hard about this, and this is what they came up with. 91% of the games, is what everybody's saying, are staying in the same area, right? So are like staying in the same time frame. Most of those opportunities of games are staying in the same thing. What we're doing is instead kind of flipping the premier transfer window to be in the summer and then a winter transfer window to bulk up your team instead of what we have right now, which is the premier transfer window being in the winter and then having the boosting up your team for a playoff run in the summer. And why that is kind of difficult as it stands right now is when you're making those runs when you're trying to buy those players in the winter right now, you are asking the teams overseas to let go of your player you're buying from them, or however you're getting the player. You're asking them to let go of them to come to your team while they might be in the hunt for either a cup or a Champions League spot, avoiding relegation, and it makes them not as willing to do so unless if they're out of contract players, right? Because why, if you are trying to avoid relegation, are you going to sell that striker that is wants to come to America when you need goals to stay up in the Premier League or whatever? Like, that causes a little bit of an issue. So what that means is a lot of our players join mid-season in the summer, and some of those players have trouble adjusting, and it can be a little bit of a problem of that is when you should be boosting up your team, but a lot of those players are having trouble adjusting or coming over later into the season. And, the team could mathematically be a stretch. Not a lot of teams are already ruled out in July, but it could be a stretch to get the playoffs. It could be anything, really. They could come in and just be taking a while to get acclimated, while instead, if they came in the winter, as it stands now, they get some time to adjust, and then maybe they're helping your team earlier, right? Instead of coming in mid-season because their team finally let them go because their season's over. So with that being flipped, Our primary window will be in the summer, which means teams will be more willing to let those players go because they're also buying players and bulking up their team for the next season. So I do think that's going to be a plus. And that's the main reason for a switch. Is to get, if 91% of the games are staying in the same windows, the biggest switch is those transfer windows to really help line it up, to get better marquee players in, to be able to get them acclimated faster and be able to get them for a whole season instead of half a season. So that is the main reason for the switch. Now, one thing I'm really interested about how this is going to go, and we've seen people drawing maps and putting what divisions they would use for these 5-6 team divisions. And maybe that's an off-season thing Logan and I can do. It's kind of, what divisions would you use? It sounds like what you will get with the single table is everybody will play everybody at least twice, or at least once. At least once. Everybody will play everybody at least once. That is what, 30 teams. That'd be 29 of the games. But then you play your other division, the 5 other division teams, another time. And that would make it be 34 games, right? 29 and 34. Yeah. Should make it 34 games. And we'll have a little bit more of a set schedule in that regard. Everybody would play everybody at least once. And then you play your other division teams a second time, it being the inverse of the if you were home, you'd play away. So it sounds like maybe it will be more like NBA style, where you'll have like the single table would be how teams. They haven't decided with the playoffs, so it could be that a division winner immediately gets a spot. Maybe that is, and maybe most likely that would always be the case anyway, even if you just took straight up the best however many teams. But like you have the some of these leagues have had single table where it's just everybody, the best teams out of blah blah blah, 1 through whatever spot, are going to get in. That's what I'm expecting it's going to be with a single table. It also makes supporter shield tracking a little easier than having an East table, a West table, and a combined table. Just having the one table and be able to keep track of all of that. So I was actually for the calendar switch, so I think it'll be good. Again, I understand the weather concerns, but here's my thought on that is I would rather have meaningless games not well attended in the winter or affected by the weather being really cold. That 2013 Sporting KC win that they won the MLS Cup in was one of the coldest games, right? And that was our final game. And it wasn't a great game. It was fun to watch because of the weather and stuff, but it was not a great game. So having our main winning, how we crown a winner, be MLS Cup, and having it be maybe in really cold regions or really warm regions, and it could be snow game, could not be a snow game. I'd rather kind of remove that and have that be an issue for mid-season games than it be how we crown our champion. I think everybody saw that Canadian Premier League final. And while that is a lot of fun, I don't know if I'd want MLS Cup final to be like that, because it can kind of influence the results of who our champion is, which I'm not sure I really would like. I think it's going to be a lot better having that final be in the summer. Now, of course, you might have rainstorms, whatever. But if the final is in May or June, it's most likely going to be a really nice time around the whole country. So I much prefer having our final not be beholden to the weather. I'm really excited for the sprint season in 2027. 14 games. That's going to be fun to cover here on the podcast. Just 14 games, and then an MLS Cup win, and that one will definitely have an asterisk next to it. I am certain. Okay. Now, when it comes to the Apple deal, right? We are removing Season Pass. That is something we just been notified, right? That Season Pass is not happening, and that instead all the games will be on Apple TV, which no longer Apple TV Plus. They got rid of the Plus. It's Apple TV. And this is actually, I think, another positive. People can spin it as a negative. You can maybe read into it and think maybe it wasn't making mathematical sense for Apple, but Apple did buy F1, and if they weren't going to make a separate pass for that, and we've seen them have like Friday Night Baseball and stuff, and I'd rather it all just be under one thing because Apple TV has some of the best shows anywhere right now. So instead of having to double dip when like Ted Lasso comes back, or right now I'm watching Pluribus, or um, you know, being able to watch Friday Night Baseball, etc. What I used to do is sign up for Apple TV Plus at the beginning of the year, make the price for the yearly lower for season pass, right? And then I would try to binge everything I could for that first month or whatever, cancel Apple TV Plus unless if I got a deal or a trial, etc. Now, instead of having to like double dip when a show comes back on that I like or whatever, I have Apple TV. I have Apple TV because I'm watching MLS, and I'll buy like the yearly subscription. And what I'll be able to do with that is watch Friday Night Baseball. I will be able to watch. I'm not an F1 fan, but if you're an F1 fan, I guess you'll be able to watch that coming soon. Ted Lasso season 4 will be probably coming out, as we've talked about on here. Severance season 3, whenever they start filming that. The backlog of shows they have For All Mankind, Silo, right? Like all those type of shows that people are interested in. Slow Horses is a show that has like 6 seasons on there with Gary Oldman. So instead of the studio, right? That was a big one with Seth Rogen. So instead of having to like sub for it again on top of the MLS fee, I'm pretty much paying how much MLS Season Pass was for a whole year of Apple and not needing to worry about ever resubscribing for another show or whatever, just having that for the year. So for me, it works really, really well. They're still giving it out to the season ticket holders, which is great. They're still able to go ahead and get that instead of MLS Season Pass. They're going to be getting Apple TV. And then they renegotiated it so their deal ends, I think, in 2028 or 2029 instead of 2032 or something. So, we will be through this Apple deal sooner. I would think most likely, I think Apple will try to keep them, but I think most likely MLS is going to just go somewhere else. Now, the issue with that will be, do we lose this ability of being able to have all games with no blackouts? Therein lies the rub. I don't want to lose that at all because this has been the perk of the Apple deal. Okay. So I guess let's go ahead and just start talking some actual results before we get out of here. But I kind of teased this. The USL Championship took place last weekend. I was able to catch some of it. I watched the penalty shootout, which was a lot of fun. Pittsburgh Riverhounds have won the USL Championship. They beat Tulsa. But some interesting stats here that I heard them talk about, and I did not realize this, but Tulsa did not give up a goal at all in the playoffs. They beat Switchbacks 1-0. They beat Phoenix 1-0. They beat New Mexico 3-0. And then Did not give up a goal to the Riverhounds. What's interesting about that is the Riverhounds also did not give up any goals in the playoffs. They drew with Hartford until they went to the shootout. Pittsburgh won that. Pittsburgh won in a shootout over Detroit after a 0-0 game. They beat Rhode Island 1-0 and then have a final that goes 0-0 and they win in penalties. So they went to 3 out of 4 games to penalties and Pittsburgh wins, and they only scored 1 goal at all in the playoffs, and that was enough to beat Rhode Island 1-0 in the semifinals. That's kind of crazy. When Pittsburgh did it, they won it. So congrats to the Riverhounds. They win. Gotham FC beat the Washington Spirit in the NWSL final. That's 2 years in a row. The Spirit got to the final and lost last year to Orlando, this year to Gotham FC, with the goal being scored by Rose Lavelle. So pretty cool. 80th minute winner by Gotham FC. All right, then we had MLS playoffs kick back off on Saturday night. We had Vancouver beat LAFC 2-2, sorry, and beat Vancouver on Vancouver beating them on penalties with a red card. So Sabi scored in the 40th minute, good goal. Laborda in the 45th +1. Then Sun scores 2 goals in the 60th and 95th minute. 90 +5, free kick. What a goal by Sun. And you think, uh-oh, the door is open here. They go extra time, even though I don't know if anybody saw this. I know some people were talking about it on Twitter, but there was a tweet that went out where they say, Major League Soccer's official accounts, like, we're going to penalties. And I was like, what? And I clicked it because I was like, I thought we'd go extra, but I guess not. And then I click it and they're playing the other moments. They're still going. So then we get to the penalty shootout and Sun misses the first one. And I think that was enough right there. You're like, okay, not their night. Delgado missed his as well, and they win the shootout, Vancouver, 4-3. So Vancouver moving on to the conference final. On Sunday, it was heartbreak. It was heartbreak for the Philadelphia teams. Cincinnati, who, their management and front office came from Philadelphia, and they lose to Miami 4-0. We had Messi scoring in the 19th, Silvetti in the 57th, and Allende in the 62nd and 74th minute. It was just they buried them. They buried them. And then NYCFC beat Philadelphia 1-0 with a goal from Morales in the 27th minute. And pretty much when that went in, I was like, I think we're going to lose this. The Union didn't really look up for it. Whether it's the long layoff because, they'd went like 20-some days without playing. Off the field stuff, Ernst Tanner was being investigated for discrimination and all that kind of stuff that came out like the day before the game, a couple of days before the game, maybe. Or if it's just NYCFC played better, but they, it was pretty much even on possession, 50-50. Philadelphia actually had more XG. They had more shots, but it just didn't really feel like it. It didn't really feel like Andre Blake made a really nice save, or else it would have been 2-0. But just a bummer that the Supporter Shield champions and my team are out already. San Diego beat Minnesota 1-0. Dreyer scoring in the 72nd minute. San Diego, they're an expansion team. They have made it to the conference final. They will face Vancouver. And one thing that's really fun about this is this whole season we've been talking about the table in the West. San Diego and Vancouver going back and forth. And they both finished with 63 points. San Diego had one more win than Vancouver. The goals for and goals against are very, very close. 64 for San Diego, 41 against San Diego, 66 for Vancouver, 38 against Vancouver. So it's very close. 28 goal differential for Vancouver, plus 23 for San Diego. It's a very, very close how they've been. We're going to go ahead and look at their head-to-head because this is coming up this weekend. Vancouver and San Diego playing at 9 p.m. Eastern time. San Diego has won one, and Vancouver has not won. They've drawn out of their two times they've played each other. June 25th, San Diego, the day before my birthday, played Vancouver and won 5-3, and San Diego drawing with Vancouver 1-1. It's a little bit of a different situation now with Vancouver and this new Vancouver side having Thomas Mueller. But it'll be interesting to see if Vancouver can get this and get to an MLS Cup final. They have, getting to this conference final for a while this season where they were number one, right? They were number one in the West. They had a really great Champions League run and then kind of faltered a bit. They bring in Thomas Mueller. They start rising back up, but San Diego ended up with having one more win on the same number of points, ends up winning the West. San Diego will host. That's how close it is. That's how close it is, or else maybe Vancouver's hosting, and this could change it all, right? This could change it all. It might also not actually change it all. Vancouver hosted the game that they lost. San Diego hosted the game that they drew. But, so we'll have that game coming up November 29th at 9 o'clock. Also on November 29th at 6 p.m., Inter Miami and NYCFC. The MLS Cup goes through Miami is what I believe. Miami has 65 points. So if Miami gets to the final, they will host. Head-to-head, Miami and NYCFC. Miami's won 2. They've drawn 4, and NYC have won 8. They've played that many times already? Dang. I mean, Miami had never even beaten them until 2022 in August, and then didn't win again until September 24th. That is more recent. This season, if we're looking at this season alone, it's been 2-2 and 4-0 to Miami. So you would think, if we're going off of that, most likely Miami should be good to go here. I think Miami is going to make it to the Cup. I think they have a really good shot at winning this whole thing. Either way, it should be a really fun matchup, whoever gets it. If it's Miami versus San Diego, Miami versus Vancouver, those are going to be really fun matchups in the playoffs for an MLS Cup. That's on Saturday, December 6th, 2:30 for MLS Cup final. I think I'm going to lock in. Vancouver overcoming that LAFC. I think I'm going to have to go with Vancouver, Miami being in there, and then we'll make our final picks for December 6th after those games. But I think I'm going to go with Miami, Vancouver for our MLS Cup final, which should be fun. I think that'll be a lot of fun. All right. Anything else that has happened? A lot of teams are making their roster decisions today. I think today was the deadline. So if they're knocked out of the tournament, that they have to make decisions. I don't really have much thoughts on that. I can't really think about that kind of stuff as we're going here. But yeah, I guess that is about it here. We'll be back, of course, next. They did release the schedule for 2026, and that is going to kick off February 21st for MLS's back weekend. Miami opens up their new stadium on April 4th. We are going to take a World Cup pause from May 25th to July 16th. They'll kick back off July 16th. The All-Star game is going to be July 29th, and then Decision Day is November 7th, so later than usual. I'm thinking with how we're going to have November 7th onward, they're probably going to have to get rid of the best of three. I said it earlier this year. I think this would be the last year of the best of three. We'll see if that is true, I guess, but I'm kind of expecting it to be. It doesn't seem like that's really taken off the way that they would want it to. But that'll wrap us up here on the podcast Stateside Soccer Show. Next week we'll be back, hopefully with Logan, to be able to discuss all of the conference finals that take place this weekend and take a look ahead at MLS Cup as we wrap up another season of covering it here on the Stateside Soccer Show. We also have coming up the World Cup draw on December 5th, so hopefully we'll have some reactions to that draw after that happens as well. But thank you all for watching and listening. We'll catch you next time.